Hello everyone, thanks for joining me today for my session on the unique leadership methodology behind the best value approach. And the best word I can use to sum this up is alignment. I usually begin by explaining this story, and it's a story about a father and his troubled youth, troubled son. The father's looking at his son trying to figure out, well, how can I help my son be able to figure life out, become more at peace, more happy? So he decides to do this thing one day. He blindfolds his son and takes him up a high mountain onto a cliff. And then he pulls his son's head behind a big rock. And then he takes off the son's blindfold. And he tells his son, open your eyes. And the son opens his eyes and he sees this big rock. The father says, well, what do you see? He says, well, I see a big rock. And the father, he lifts the son's head up to reveal a magnificent valley. And while the son is marveling and gazing over this valley, the father asks his son, how big does a rock look now? And basically what the father realized is that part of the son's issue was he got too close to life, and he needed to be able to lift up his head so he could realize the relationship that everything had in life. And so he could realize that what he was focused on wasn't necessarily a very big part of life. This story really relays leadership to me, because leaders have this ability to be able to observe life. And because they can do this, they understand the correct relationship that everything has in life, as well as how everything is connected. And so when you look at the industry, the construction industry, you have all the different silos, I call them, all the different parties, all the different stakeholders. And usually they get so close to their own issues that they don't understand how their organization and their work relates to everybody else. And this causes a lot of chaos, it causes a lot of issues, lowers performance. What a leader is able to do is they are able to go into each silo to help each party simplify so that they can understand the relationship they have with all the other stakeholders. It allows them to get out of the silo, and it increases performance because it allows people to know what's going on and where they actually fit in the overall process. Which begs the question, well, how does leadership increase efficiency? I want you to think about traditionally, how have you been told that leadership will increase efficiency in an organization? Because what we're about to go over now, and if you need more time, please pause the video to think about the question. But now what we're going to go over is exactly really why leadership increases efficiency, which is very opposite of what most people have been taught or have thought about leadership. You see, the traditional perception of leadership is that you have a leader, and this leader, because of their experience, knowledge, understanding, their purpose and how they're going to increase efficiency is they're going to go down and relay all of this information, knowledge, experience to others so that they can teach them and increase their capability to do great work. And this is a traditional model of leadership. The more leadership you have, the greater the worker capability, the greater production. But actually what research has found is that one person has very little capability of going in and trying to influence, impact, increase another person's capability. In fact, there have been no studies where I have found that has shown this to be correct or that it's possible. But what I have found is that in reality, regardless of your leadership capability, the worker capability stays the same. So even if you're a great leader, your workers, their capability will always remain the same. But the better your leadership's capability or skills, the greater the production of the entire group. Now, a lot of people ask me, well, Jacob, how is this possible? If the leader has no influence, impact on changing their followers and their workers, how does a leader, or how does leadership increase the productivity of the entire group? Well, this is a way. Let's look at two construction organizations. There's two leaders of two different construction organizations. One can understand the difference between workers and one cannot. So the one who has greater leadership capability, who can tell the difference between workers, when this construction company hires two workers, this person can realize, well, this worker is really good at painting and this worker is really good at concrete work. So in this organization, this leader is going to put the concrete worker doing concrete work and the painting worker doing the painting work. Now in the other organization, the leader can't tell the difference. So what does this leader do with these two people they're hiring? Well, first, since he can't tell the difference, they're going to have, or this person is going to send the painting person to do concrete work and the concrete worker to do the painting work. And what's going to happen? They're not going to do it well. So now in this organization, you're going to require these two employees to get trained. They're going to have to get trained on being able to do painting work and concrete work. Now, because this is not their skill, not only are they going to get trained, but they're still not going to be able to do it as well as they could if they're doing what they did best. And so even after they get trained, then this leader is going to have to hire a manager to watch these two people do their job and make sure they do everything correctly. Now, even after they do their job, it still won't be done 100% correct. So then they're going to have to hire an inspector to always inspect their work. And then they're going to have to go and hire, oftentimes, someone to do their work over again, which rework in the construction industry happens more oftentimes than we would like. And so now, because he didn't put the painting worker doing the painting work and the concrete worker doing the concrete work, and you got them mixed up, you have to now go through a lot of training, which costs money. You have to hire a manager, you have to hire an inspector, and then you also have to hire people to do their work over again. Now, in the first example, with the leader who could tell the difference between the two, this leader is going to let the concrete worker do the concrete work and the painting worker do the painting work. Minimal training will be required. It won't be required to hire a manager or an inspector because the work will be high quality because that's their natural talents. And very, very few times will they ever have to even think of doing rework or doing their work over again. And because they don't have to do all these things, the leader who can tell the difference and has great leadership capability now has saved tons of money, time, and resources. Hence, the productivity of the group goes way up. And this is how a leader truly helps increase efficiency, is by being able to understand and see the big picture and see how everyone fits in to the overall scheme of a project and puts everybody in the right place doing the thing that they do best. And this is what we strive to do as leaders, is to align people correctly instead of trying to influence them or change who they are. Now, I did my master's research on this very topic, trying to figure out why do so many people teach that leadership is influence. And what I found is that when you go all the way back, and if you look at all of our leadership philosophies right now, 99% of them is all based on trying to influence, motivate, or change another person. So when I went back to figure out, well, how did people come to this idea thinking that a leader has any influence to begin with? And so I went all the way back to look for studies, trying to identify, is there any study that shows that one person can influence another and be successful at it? Amazingly, I did not find any studies showing that. The only studies that truly had an impact or showed an increase in performance were those where the leader actually adjusted things to account for the people they were dealing with. So for example, I saw one successful study about getting people to recycle more. But what they did to get people to recycle more was they identified the behavior of the people, of the population, and they adjusted where the signs were, where they put the recycle bins, and in adjusting the whole system to fit more with what the people naturally did, they're able to increase recycling. And so everywhere you find successful leadership operating, it's always been aligning people correctly instead of trying to change people. Now, another way of looking at this, or another way to look at the traditional leadership model, I call it the inefficient or the influence leadership model. And that's kind of like where you see the baby toy that has multiple sides and different shapes on each side. And you see the baby trying to shove the triangle shape into the star shape, or the square into the triangle shape. And they keep doing it repeatedly, and it's kind of cute. But I always ask people, have you ever seen a grown man do that? It's not as cute. But this is what we do every single day. We try to take all the different people who are all different, have different talents, and we're trying to shove them in the same hole. Education does this. Training does this. Everywhere you go, everybody is always not realizing people are different, so trying to do the same thing with different people. This is a tough model. Why? Because it focuses on changing people, which is already tough. It makes the followers a constraint, thus relieving the leader of any accountability. It requires a lot of resources, and in the end, it doesn't work. So it increases cost, increases time, but it actually doesn't provide any value, and it doesn't raise performance. Now, the efficient leadership model, or the alignment or no control leadership model, is the one where we realize that everyone's different. And so instead of trying to control the people, manage, direct, tell them what to do, trying to change them, now what we're going to do is we're trying to figure out who they are, and we're going to adjust the system to fit the people and align people with the exact slot that they're supposed to be in. And so this one, it requires the leader to understand. And so this is a very difficult model. You need someone who has the ability to tell the difference between people and things. 2, the leader is a constraint. So whenever you have a certain performance and you want to increase it, well, it's all dependent upon your leader's ability to create a structure and system that is able to utilize everyone's expertise that they're working with. Now, the focus is on changing the system. And this is what makes it a lot more efficient, because it's a lot easier to adjust your process than to change the people. Now, part of the confusion here is because even though there's no evidence showing that you can influence, impact, or control someone, a lot of people, when they observe in life, it seems that this idea of influence is correct. And this came up in my master's defense. So my master's degree, or my master's thesis, I identified that there is no influence or control. It's never been proven. There's no proof behind it. So leadership is alignment. And I went into my defense, and one of the professors asked me, well, what about the dolphins? I was kind of confused. I said, well, what do you mean about the dolphins? And so my professor explained, well, when you go into the wild, the dolphins only jump so high. But when you go to the amusement park, the dolphins are jumping really high. Are you telling me that the trainers have no impact on how high these dolphins can jump? Now, this was back before they did all these documentaries on dolphins, because now we have footage that shows the dolphins can jump really high, even in the wild. But at the time, I didn't have that evidence. So I simply asked my professor these questions. Well, how do you know that the wild dolphin can't jump as high as the trained dolphin? And the next question I asked is, and how do you know that every dolphin can jump that high? Does every dolphin make it to the show? Or do they find only the dolphins that can jump really high and only show them in their performances? Well, although my professor couldn't answer those questions, it wasn't good enough. So I had to make it a little bit more technical. And so this is what I did. I explained it like this. This idea of two people being in the same place but not having any influence on each other is much like simultaneous equations. You see, you have these two separate equations. They have no influence or impact on each other. But because they have similar variables, you can use both equations to identify x and y. This is very much like people. So when you look here, you have person one and there's people around them. Well, even though person one has no influence, impact, or control over the people around them and vice versa, what you start finding out is everyone around person one is by person one because they have similar variables. And when they have similar variables, even though they don't have influence or impact on each other, you can use one to kind of understand the other one. So for example, when you look at the amusement park, it just so happens that dolphins who have the capability and love to jump high and love to eat fish, they just so happen to always be by trainers. They don't have influence on each other, but they have similar variables. The trainers want the dolphins to jump high and the dolphins like to jump high. The trainers give fish and the dolphins like fish. This is how it works. They don't have any influence on each other. We also call this, in the leadership realm, birds of a feather flock together. Why? Because we realize that similar people attract similar people. So you often find very highly qualified athletes that have inherent talent. They always seem to find really good trainers. Another person that I always bring up is Mozart. Mozart, we know, inherently was gifted. Why? Because it was said that Mozart could sight read any piano piece and never make a mistake the first time playing. Mozart also taught himself how to play the violin, also did many things at a very young age before Mozart was ever trained. But we also find that in Mozart's life, Mozart was one of the most highly trained musicians, meaning Mozart had many, many teachers and trainers to help him improve his piano and music skills. It wasn't that Mozart was made great because he had great trainers and teachers. Mozart inherently had it, but it just so happens that people who are very good at something always seek out other people who are really good at training and helping them improve. Now, as we see that leaders, well, they don't try to influence people, but they try to truly identify who people are and align them correctly. But this isn't all leadership. What we find out is if you look at this chart, you have different types of leaders. And this is why there's so much confusion in the characteristics of a leader. Because you have the leader who has more information or perceives more. This is a leader that is more likely to align people in the correct place and not try to talk a lot or try to influence other people or control them. Why? Because this leader can lift up his head, see exactly what reality is and how everything's connected, and align people in the right place. Now that is who we call the A leader, the one who can understand. That is A for alignment. Now, the leader who is most likely to try to control other people is the one who doesn't understand as much. And this is the C leader. C is for control. The C leader, because they don't understand the difference, because they don't understand people and see more of reality, they see less of reality, they're more likely to try to control people to lead them. Now, if you look on the questions on the right, pause the video if you want to try and answer them by yourself, but we will go over this in just 1 second. Okay, so which type of leader feels that they are more important? Well, obviously, the leader who's trying to control everyone is going to feel they're more important as well because they're doing everything. When leaders figure out and understand that they have no influence or impact on people, they realize that their whole job is just alignment. But the most important part of increasing performance and efficiency is actually the people and their capability and what they do best. Their followers are the most important, and aligning them to utilize their capability and their value is the most important thing. Which type of leader will be more involved? Well, of course, the one who feels like they have to tell everyone what to do, motivate them, influence them. They will be more involved than the leader who realizes they have no control or influence and just puts people in the right place. Which type of leader will say more? Of course, the one who feels they have to talk more, the one who feels that they can influence other people. Those are usually the ones who will tend to say more. Leaders will always try to help. Why? Now, here's the thing, is both leaders will always try to help. But the one who will try to help by doing more is actually the C-type leader. Because that one feels that they are more important, that what they do, what they say, how they do it is going to have a greater influence or impact on the situation than the one who understands, the A leader, who realizes they have no influence or impact. All they can do is put people in the right place and let them utilize their capability and their talents for what they can do. And so both leaders will try and help, but the A-type leader will do less and will try to just align. And the C-type leader will actually try to do more and will try to help by getting involved.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to our channel for more content. If you have any questions about the best value approach or for Dr. Dean, leave them in the comment section below and we'll get to them in a later video. Thanks. We'll see you.